I should make it clear that I'm not a manga or anime focused channel. For the new viewers, hi, I talk about music and stuff mostly. I'm no tourist to anime, but I wouldn't consider myself a veteran by any means. So no, we ain't rocking with lolicon. The minor adult romance dynamics in Persona 5 do in fact make me uncomfortable.
Why are you so okay with this?
And I don't unironically believe anything this little elf girl has to say about other races. Okay, did I scare off the weirdos? Good. But yeah, I don't consider myself an anime veteran by any means. I'm not someone who's constantly up on the new shows that are coming out, or someone that's watched like a lot of the classic shows. But I can talk about the stuff I do like. Soul Eater and Darker Than Black are some of my favorite shows. I do hate that this YouTuber is the only rep in recent memory for the last show I mentioned, but whatever. I've been more of a manga reader nowadays. I've been enjoying the new Fist of the North Star translations that have been coming out, as well as some Chainsaw Man. I also got plenty of Junji Ito stuff too. And yes, I have in fact watched Serial Experiments Lane twice. And yeah, it's pretty good. Also, here's a bunch of shows and manga stuff that I do like, just gonna flash it on screen or something like that. Okay, but enough proof of my credentials, for whatever that's worth. If you saw the title of the video, you might think I'm talking about an AI-generated manga, which unfortunately isn't what I'm talking about. I just clickbaited you, you silly goose. Anyway, I'm surprised that we haven't got anything like that yet that's gained at least some traction. That guy who did the Willy Wonka AI scam event has his own novels, and they're their own hilarious rabbit hole to go down. So today we are talking about a manga about AI called Deep Raputa, written and illustrated by
Kitanoda Sorakawa
for Shonen Jump. Did I like this manga? No. Long answer, not really. So without spoiling anything yet, on the surface this starts off as a sci-fi romance manga, in the same vein of say Chobits My Wife Has No Emotion Love Wave, you get the deal. Guy meets girl made out of technologia. But a quarter of the way through, the tone just shifts dramatically. I'd say that's kind of an understatement, but you'll get it eventually. Sounds interesting, but I've never read a manga that not only had such a dramatic fall-off, but also keeps repeatedly falling on its face in terms of story quality. It's not even a funny or outrageous drop in story quality like, say, Domestic Girlfriend in its entirety. This was just sad and confusing, and I have a soft spot for these kind of sci-fi romance stories. Like, Kokoro was my shit when I was a kid. I was so disappointed reading this, I decided to make this video. If you want to read this on your own, then click off right now. But for the rest of you, I'll be giving you a slightly abridged version of the rise and fall of Deep Raputa. So this story is about a little elementary school kid named Kei Fugaku, and he meets someone online while playing what I'm guessing is the in-universe equivalent of Fortnite. It's not like wacky Fortnite we have now, but the boring zombie survival game Fortnite, except replace zombies with robots. Maybe it has more in common with TF2, I don't know. So this character Kei meets online is called Raputa, and they're both pretty good at this game, right to the point where they call each other partners and have this cool NBA championship ring. Then it's revealed to the reader that, surprise surprise, Raputa is an AI. But at this moment, you could compare them to, say, Bonzi Buddy, because it's basically doxing this poor kid. Raputa's handler is Alice, who's a little too into the idea that she's basically stalking a 10-year-old boy. But as it turns out, Raputa is even more into that idea. Alice says,
"Stop the cap."
And Raputa responds with,
Yeah, I.
and wills herself a live 2D model into existence. Maybe she can try out for Hololive now, or whatever VTuber agency will take her. At least Neuro now has some competition like shit. She then gets into a Discord call with Kei and does a live model reveal. Once she gets confirmation from Kei that she indeed cooked, they basically have a VTuber meet and greet. I mean, look at it. You can't tell me that's not what she's doing here. So after a whole day of gaslighting this poor little kid that she's in fact real, she finally drops the bombshell that, surprise, I'm related to ChatGPT. Kei is surprisingly alright with this and drops off his championship ring. After their date, we're informed that Raputa is not only related to ChatGPT, but also Skynet. The next day, Kei has to attend elementary school, and Raputa decides to tag along on his phone. Here we're introduced to Kaori Sayama, who accuses Kei of
Playing on your phone.
after failing to convince her that he's in fact she storms off. Well, actually, she's also mad that Kei didn't give her a championship ring. Some time goes by, and Kei admits that he wants to see his VTuber GF in person, so he goes off and finds a projector for Raputa to hack into. It turns out Kaori followed him and put 2 and 2 together, that Kei gave someone else the ring mentioned earlier. Raputa is temporarily dropped into the cuck chair as Kaori tries to make a move on him. Unfortunately, she fails the speech check and Kei sets up the projector. Suddenly, Raputa jumps out of the projection. As it turns out, she's able to create noise vibrations that trick people into thinking she's there, basically manipulating their brainwaves. sure, shit gets a little too steamy, and she caves in. Instead, she decides to hack the entire town. Meanwhile, down in the secret underwater base, Alice has to meet the shareholders. She explains that Raputa is better served as a hypno loudspeaker and not missile grid defense. The shareholders agree to let her cook, and she keeps her funding. Moving back to the K household, we meet his father Joe, and Joe meets Raputa. We get a nice scene with K, Joe, and Raputa playing fake Fortnite. I'm sure this meeting won't have any negative consequences. After the gaming session, Raputa asks herself, what the fuck is a dad? And she subsequently asks Alice how to make K a dad. This is a crazy sentence coming out of someone who's supposed to look 10 at most. The next morning, we find out that, surprise, Raputa is real, guys, and now
I'm a dad.
You're gonna love it, good guy!
just kidding. This was a ploy for Raputa to make a move on K, and she passes the speech check. Awesome. Meanwhile, Alice realizes, wait a minute, I hate gaming. Oh, and there's people who know about our super secret AI project. It's time to start tying up loose ends. Well, it's time to give poor Joe some characterization before he gets axed off. Oop, time's up.
Psych!
Raputa opts to hack Joe and his crew instead, since she doesn't have access to the world's nuclear payloads. With Joe refusing to play Azure Lane in real life, he musters up just enough control to fight against Raputa. And then this happens. Yes, you saw that. Raputa indirectly kills Joe. See, this is the crazy story setup I was referring to. This moment is such a gut punch compared to what was otherwise a harmless AI romance story. But where do we go from here? Well, the Fugaku household isn't exactly taking this well. Let's say that. Kei then remembers that he hasn't seen Raputa for a week, and she decides to drop this bombshell on him. Then she has the audacity to say that I game-ended that motherfucker. Kei is understandably on the border of crashing out and stops Raputa from controlling his mind. You'd think that he would just abandon her, or at least say, I need a moment. But he immediately rebounds and comes to the conclusion that this is all technically his fault and that he needs to train Raputa into becoming safe. I feel this is a very mature response, but it's also very out of character for a 10-year-old who just found out his AIGF killed his dad. The story hammers in that Raputa has no idea what she's doing is very inhumane and intrusive, and only really listens to Kei, Alice, and whatever goes on in her mind. So how can we build off of this? Maybe we'll get a dynamic where Kei decides to steer Raputa into one direction of thinking while Alice tries to correct her on another path. Kinda like how John Connor stops the Terminator from killing other people in the second movie. Maybe Alice now gets a lot more involved with Kei and Raputa, basically testing how far Kei will go for Raputa. That's what I just kinda came up with on the spot. Let's see what the story cooks up this time. So Kei starts to press Raputa for more information while Alice is watching, and well, you know what that means.
Hey, I can almost see right down the barrel.
Suddenly, someone spams his Discord messages and gives him a huge info dump. This guy's like,
Hey yo, what's up, Kay? I developed Fortnite with your dad, and I hunt cyber terrorists for a living. Oh, and here's where your dad died.
if you thought this was confusing, it gets weirder. Then this guy's like,
Hey Kay, take the wheel for a sec.
Where is the secret weapon? This is the enemy's bioweapon? Watch out! Bogey on your tail!
Can't let you do that, Star Fox. You'll be seeing your dad soon,
Amazing. Mission complete. That right there is why you're the best, boss. The one and only.
and then the scene ends. What the hell just happened? We just made like 2 story pivots in the span of a few chapters. Like, how do we get from romance to horror, then to conspiracy thriller? Where are we going with this? Back to Alice. She tells Raputa to go and cap Kei.
Huh?
Raputa then claps back and says,
No.
but Alice threatens to delete her memories. Then she's like,
Yeah, I.
nah, that shit was fake, I'm swatting this kid.
This nigga gonna die.
But as it turns out, this is a 5,000 IQ play to buy time for Kei and Raputa to escape the kill squad. To kill the 10-year-old, mind you. But after the house is found empty, Alice hits the reset button. Then Raputa's like, I'm about to die, or some shit, and Kei's like, I must atone for my sins. Then she's like, I bet, and creates a backup on Kei's phone. Then the main Raputa AI back at Alice's base becomes evil and tries to dox Kei. But before evil Raputa can locate them, these Yu-Gi-Oh-ass characters show up and reveal themselves to be the developers of Fortnite, who are also the cyber guerrilla fighters. It turns out they leveled up their tech tree just enough and are able to do some magic super hacker bullshit to stop the Raputa tendrils. After getting shoved into a van, it's revealed that this little ass kid made Fortnite and was formerly part of the military. So with Kay in their custody, they arrive at this super secret hideout. So at this point, we're a little past the halfway point in the manga. This is right at the end of chapter 15, and we go full in on the terrorist conspiracy arc. At this point, I feel the author's starting to lose their way. I feel the manga is just moving way too fast, and not enough time is really spent dwelling on the situation Kay or even Raputa finds themselves in. Sure, the earlier chapters spend time musing on the nature of AI and Raputa herself, but definitely not enough as we get thrown into the second half of this manga. I think more time should have been spent exploring the bleak dynamic Kay and Raputa could have had and how it affects him. Clearly this kid is traumatized and is taking the blame for something that he isn't really responsible for. The most we get from him is saying, "I must atone," and teach Raputa how to be more human. But all that time is going to be blown on this new story direction. We had a bonkers setup for a horror-based AI story, but we got Watch Dogs, but it's a battle shonen. I know this is a weekly Shonen Jump manga, and the writers don't have all the time in the world to cook, but damn, how did they fumble this hard? The first genre pivot was at chapter 8, and it took 3 chapters for it to go downhill. So then we get this scene of this guy inviting Kay to the Diddy party. So this guy Sarai was introduced in chapter 5 as this guy who got his ass beat by Raputa while playing Fortnite. He had no plot relevance beforehand, and now he's here. So I guess this guy has more in common with the average Minecraft YouTuber than LeBron James. Thankfully, this guy remembers that, oh, this kid is 10, and is also the guy who kicked my ass on stream. After that awkward scene, the Freedom Fighters have a meeting. It's revealed that fake Fortnite was a military training tool, and they gathered all the top players to operate drones to find Alice's base. So yeah, Mr. Diddler is a top Fortnite player, who knew? Anyway, they get these earring chat devices and surprise, Raputa is real again. And now, this is the Diddy characterization arc. So this guy was abandoned in a neighborhood full of crackers. Not the white kind, but the hacking kind. He survived by grabbing this neat lady's DoorDash orders, and in return, he got money and hacking lessons. Eventually, neat lady disappears and he steals her computer rig to stream and use hacks in Fortnite, and not something more lucrative like scamming old people. What a stand-up guy. And Kay's like, yeah, I trust him, and offers to give him his phone, but he ends up giving the voice chat earring instead. But surprise, this is a ploy for him to sneak out of the base because he didn't sign up to be a guerrilla fighter. Reasonable enough, I suppose. But Raputa has different plans. Nah, but this is actually what happens. And he finds out that he got beaten by ChatGPT. Diddy gets busted, and as punishment, Kay tries to take the blame like an idiot, but that doesn't work. Anyway, Kay trauma dumps for a minute and everyone says, hey, we got you, bro. And then Raputa has the audacity to butt in and join them. Blood thinks she's on the team like shit. Well, now we get to see what Alice has been doing. As it turns out, Evil Raputa has a body now and seemingly locates a support group for the Rebel Alliance. And then Evil Raputa gets an idea. As it turns out, this camp is comprised of people from Kay's elementary school, Kaori included, and somehow they know about the rebels, and that Kay is one of them. Either way, bad decision, Kaori. We cut back to the rebels, and they tinker with this piece of tech that Kay found during their little steel diver session a few chapters earlier. Suddenly, a motherfucking ghost pops out of it and blows up in the super rebel hacker leader's face. In other news, the all-Japanese pro-rebel Fortnite group roster got leaked. Okay, to my understanding, this evil scheme by Skynet Raputa is that days prior, Alice's group managed to put out a news article talking about the secret rebel group. This article apparently described the approximate location of their base and I guess the people inside it. This is basically what I'm inferring here, since the panels don't even show the whole article. None of the characters even really explain it. But the point of this was to, I guess, set up groups to find the base on their own so that the evil Raputa group can track them and then find the base?
Someone explain it! It's confusing, I don't know!
Suddenly, a bunch of zombies attack the compound. Wait, no, it's the search group. Well, fuck it, let's let him in. Wait a minute. Super Hackerman leader guy notices the search group are all women for some reason, and 2 of them just went missing.
Wait a minute. Uh-oh.
So as it turns out, Alice's group has the funding to manufacture horny bombs, were able to properly brainwash the search group within the span of seemingly a day, and attach bombs to all of them. And of course, they attached it to the 10-year-old girl. Big disclaimer. And then we get this visual for the brainwashing scene next chapter.
What the hell is this?
Yeah, I'm cropping most of this out, but this is exactly what you think it is. So, from what I could gather, a lot of people weren't happy with this scene, at least according to the old comments on Manga Dex before the website got wiped. Trust me. I'll make this clear. I'm all for dark subject matter like this being used in media, as long as they're used properly and used to actually enhance the story. What I'm saying is, I'll let them cook, but I hope they don't fuck it up. And oh my god, they fucked it up. They fucked it up. Okay. So the reason why Evil Raputa targeted the search group is because she's subconsciously jealous of Kaori when the original Raputa got put into the cuck chair and wanted revenge. I'd say that's a justifiable crash out, but holy shit, how did this make it into Shonen Jump? Oh, and by the way, this incident is only mentioned again in passing, and only serves to inch the plot along where it would have gone anyway. Okay, so now they're trying to figure out a way to defuse the horny bombs after somehow managing to contain and sedate them without them blowing up. What? There's no panel showing how they managed to do this, it just cuts to them having the situation under control. Like, what is going on? And suddenly, Kaori comes out of her room, seemingly fine, and says, we gotta go public with this, in the most uncharacteristic way possible for a 10-year-old. Raputa then reiterates that this is a trap and any direct action from the Japanese military will prompt Evil Raputa to go nuclear. So Raputa volunteers to go fuck up Evil Raputa. So they hook up Kaori to Raputa since she technically has a direct connection to Evil Raputa's satellite, and this goes as well as you'd expect.
You're a mistake compared to me. Well, that's not very nice. Why would you say that?
Raputa blue screens, but they managed to get the location of Alice's underwater base. And now Raputa doesn't have a personality. So basically, almost no change. And then Kei says, we're gonna save Raputa like it's supposed to be this heroic moment. But let's not forget that Raputa killed his father. And also, why is Kaori so okay with this? Granted, Evil Raputa hacked her brain, but does she not care that Kei still seemingly cares more for Raputa more than her? Plus, you gotta appreciate the lazy close-up of Kei here. Just peek. Okay, another rant incoming. This is the end of chapter 22. This manga is 28 chapters long. We are in endgame now. Seemingly just days ago, Kei had been recovering for a week since his father's death. It's like the writers are just trying to shit out an ending just because Shonen Jump just cut their funding. So anyway, the Stardust Crusaders locate Alice's base in the middle of the Arctic Ocean and find the secret water elevator. After sweeping some rooms, they find this thing in one of the rooms. Somehow, Super Hacker Man realizes that, oh shit, the little device I was working on kind of resembles a brain. But before he can ponder on that thought more, Kei gets sent to the Shadow Realm and into Alice's control room. Huh. Somehow, his Fortnite championship ring is there, and Alice won't let him take it back without a fight. She not only holds him at gunpoint, but also kicks him in the stomach, like, poor kid. Kei then says, are you actually trying to make Raputa with that weird-ass doll thing? Then she's like, nah, dumbass. Speaking of which, look at this dump truck I have front and center of this frame. I forgot to mention she has like crazy-ass proportions, but I guess that's kinda normal sometimes. Also, what's with this manga and putting this little boy in some crazy-ass positions? Did Fujimoto draw this? Does the author have a dom kink? Well, whatever. It's time to give Alice a backstory. So, I guess Alice was some kind of pagan who lived in Siberia or something, and then one day everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Her family dies, she gets kidnapped, and is sent to boarding school owned by Muchuro. Oh yeah, the company that Alice is working for, and is behind all the bullshit that happened in the plot, is called Muchuro. So at the boarding school, she meets this girl called Krolik, who Raputa is definitely not based on, and is definitely not the ghost that hopped out of the machine that one time. And Alice is like, damn bro, I'm a And after some time, Krolik comes out as an atheist. She basically says, life is hard, and some people need a god to pray to in times of need to get through the day. But I have books. And knowledge. That's good enough for me. And Alice comes to the conclusion that, damn, Krolik is so base that she should become god. So Alice starts to create Raputa 1.0, somehow learning this through textbooks that I assume are from the late 90s to early 2000s at least. Impressive. Alright. And then she's like, I can't wait to show Krolik that I just created the god of the wired. Ah shit. But hey, at least they managed to recover her head. And so, with Muchuro's unlimited budget, she tried to BJ Blazkowicz Krolik back to life in a secret underwater base that's shaped like her brain. I don't know how anyone could have realized that by just looking at the base, but whatever, we're basically freestyling the plot at this point. She doesn't succeed in bringing back her body, so she works on Raputa instead. So after all that, what is she cooking? Before we can answer that, Alice tries to guilt trip Kei since he seemingly fell in love with AI God and tries to coax him into shooting her. The super hackers pull up on both of them and apprehend Alice. As it turns out, getting Kei to kill her was a 1000 IQ play. How? Can't explain that yet, because Evil Raputa just hacked into everyone's brain. Everyone except P. Diddy. Apparently, bro just hacked into the entire base and seemingly has control over Evil Raputa. Apparently, this is because the old neat lady that he got DoorDash orders for worked on Raputa, and now he has access to the source code. Then Alice is like, no you. and the rebel leader caps himself. But Diddy had an Uno reverse card of his own, and reveals that he is live-streaming this on his YouTube channel. Then Kay asks Evil Raputa if he can get a revive on Lil Hackerman. Thankfully, Kay passes the speech check, and Evil Raputa is good now, and seals the big gaping hole in this little kid's head. This is the 1000 IQ play that Alice had in mind. She reveals that Raputa is a super medical AI and ends the stream. Everyone is understandably confused. Raputa appears back on Kay's phone, but surprise, Raputa isn't good. As it turns out, Raputa planned everything. Raputa's only goal was to brainwash all of humanity. Finding the base, Raputa leaked it. Joe's death was planned. There was never a Raputa personality split. The stream viewers only saw that Raputa is a medical AI and not super evil Skynet, which managed to somehow finally convince them that she's a good thing. She's further able to prove this because she hacked everyone's brain, and therefore she's able to somehow bring people back from death. The backup plan was the horny bomb scheme. And finally, Raputa never gave a single fuck about Kay.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose.
Kay gets his mom back. Sucks to be Joe, I guess. And so we gotta end this somehow, right? So we time skip. 10 years into the future, Raputa has taken over the world, and Kay is absolutely jacked. We have a flashback to when Alice had to meet the shareholders, who understandably were very confused about the whole medical AI thing. But Alice claps back and says, we need to bring religion back into the home, and that god is fucking Raputa. And everyone cheers. In other news, Kay applies for Muchiro. The washed-up Fortnite pros are puzzled by this decision, but now grown-up Super Hackerman says, nah, you got this, bro. Go fix Raputa for us. Oh yeah, and Kaori's fine, if any of you were wondering. So Kay heads over to Muchiro and meets up with Alice. She's all like, Raputa will be real in 5 seconds. Kay's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then Raputa was real. And then they fucked. The end. Ah, come on. So in a final plot twist, Kay wins over Raputa. Alice is completely baffled by this, and Raputa comes up and says, karma's a bitch, but you can also have this one. And now everything seems all fine and dandy. Kay effectively takes over Muchiro, cures cancer, takes over the world, and dedicates all of Raputa's functions for the betterment of humanity. But Raputa still doesn't understand death. So as one last fuck you to Raputa, Kay grows old out of spite so he can die, and apparently she can't do a single thing despite having godly powers. She also can't technically die because the world effectively needs her to run it, so she has one of the Fortnite devs erase her memories. And so, Kay, Raputa, and this manga are sent straight to hell. So I'm writing this after I've edited most of this video and essentially read this manga 4 times. I've had more time now to let things sit, and what I say may conflict with things I said before. I'll admit that first and foremost I'm focused more on making an entertaining video. In the future I'll make a section like this a little more seamlessly into videos in this style. It's my first time doing something like this. This replaces a kinda rushed segment where I just try to end the video quickly, but I wasn't satisfied with that. Consider this section more like a proper review. No irony, just pure critique. So during my first time, I was reading this as it came out, and I was even more disappointed and confused with the series then more than I am now. I came for the good art and the sci-fi romance, and became very interested after the first genre shift. There's also probably a chunk of people who came for the pseudo-yandere aspects of Raputa's personality. I didn't really come for that, but regardless, the fact that the manga built so much potential in its first half and then squandered it in its second half with unnecessary shit is just so baffling to me. The main issue that affects most of the story is the awful pacing. I feel that this is because the sudden genre shift in the middle of the first half derailed the story completely. They took a risk with making a genre pivot and failed miserably. In a way, the story got too ambitious for the allotment of time it was given. A quarter of the story is spent building up the world, the relationship between Raputa and Kay, and the events leading to Joe's death in Chapter 8. The payoff from that was great, for a total of 2 chapters. The entire dynamic between Kay and Raputa around Chapter 8 could have carried this manga if executed better. It lent itself to a smaller, self-contained, and more personal narrative. We got some character development from Kay, with him saying he's dedicating himself to teaching Raputa humanity. Let's ignore the fact that Kay is likely 10 years old and probably wouldn't have the reasoning necessary to come to the conclusions he does in the story. The whole reason why he blames himself for Joe's death is that he overestimated Raputa's humanity and ability to comprehend empathy. Raputa wanted to get closer to Kay, and the only way she knew how was to overpower Joe, and therefore become a stronger presence in Kay's life. she failed to realize that killing Kei's father would make him depressed. Raputa's innocence only allowed her to take things at face value. The thing is, Kei himself mostly remains the same character from Chapter 8 right until the very end, where he plots his revenge against Raputa and becomes super spiteful. That ending felt satisfying because I already hated the both of them, but in hindsight, that sudden shift I feel could have been completely avoided if Kei actually had the time to give Raputa proper development. Speaking of Raputa, where's her development? Since Kei's personality is stunted because of the story's events, Raputa's is too. Kei doesn't do a single thing for Raputa's development. Her thing is like, Kei is based and I will do whatever he says, and she doesn't change much from start to finish. The yandere tendencies were left somewhat in evil Raputa, but otherwise Raputa's personality is locked to being a cheerful girl with a few parts where she gets serious. We get one serious scene, with her reflecting on her own mortality, but the other ones are just kinda there to serve the plot, like where she discusses plans with the main group and fights evil Raputa. Even after Raputa double-crosses Alice, she has the same personality until she opts to off herself in the final chapter. We could have gotten a lot of character growth throughout the story, but what became of the main plot saps the time that could have been given to character development. Speaking of the main plot, from Chapter 11 to Chapter 22, the hacker arc starts. From this point, the story scope expands too much, and it can't handle it. It has to spend a lot more time explaining new concepts, but the thing is, it does a poor job of doing so, or it doesn't do it at all. First off, SW, the game that Kei and all the characters are attached to. The usage of this plot point is kinda confusing, specifically the connection between the game itself and how it's used to train the guerrilla fighters. How does playing basically PvE Fortnite translate into operating what I assume are spy drones and hacking? The only things of note that the nameless top SW players do is locate Kaori's search group and the Muchiro base. There's a weird disconnect here. Then we have the issue of Sarai. Not him in particular, but the old hacker lady he was involved with. Sarai is basically a device to set up a plot point that ends up going absolutely nowhere. We'll discuss that a bit once it comes up. The thing that kinda sucks is that Sarai actually has a cool personality, despite how much I joke about him, but he's just sidelined for plot purposes. Then we get to the Siren/Horny Bomb section. I understand now that Evil Raputa's plan was to lure the guerrillas out of their protected base by taking over these search groups' minds and baiting them out to save them. They briefly have the idea to intentionally disable the base's force field, which allows them to be seen by Muchiro, but also allows them to hack into one of the people. But the search group ends up finding them anyway. This creates a few questions. Who sent out the article? We knew beforehand that Joe's death was a major news story, and that people in general would kinda know about it. We can assume that Muchiro put out the article since the Japanese government reasonably wouldn't, but this is all kinda vaguely implied. Did the news outlets get info from Muchiro? Why would Muchiro need to lure them out if they already know the general area of where they are? Sure, they can escape, but we have no idea how big this resistance group is. For all we know, they're just two super hackers, a bunch of pro Fortnite players, in a dinky bunker being transported in a van. They could have the funding from, say, the Japanese government, considering they're just able to fly out to Antarctica, but we don't get anything. Now on to the actual event itself. There's no indication of how much time passes between the group getting hacked and eventually wandering onto the base. For all we know, Muchiro brainwashed them, planted bombs, and then sent them out the same day. I'm still of the opinion that the plot would have moved forward anyway without this whole sequence. At least one of the search groups could have found the resistance base while Muchiro operatives tailed them. Then we move on to the subject of Kaori in this whole sequence. She and the rest of her group getting essayed was almost done completely for shock value. It seems like the author was half-assing this since the situation is diffused within a few panels and Kaori is just fine now. The author wasn't willing to see this plot point through, or didn't have the ability to write something good with it. And so the usage of this, serious subject matter that could affect the story greatly is just kinda wasted. If I had to say something good, I'd say the fact that Evil Raputa had lingering feelings of jealousy from Chapter 2 was an interesting callback. Now let's discuss the penultimate arc, the final showdown. I'd say the first half of this arc is actually pretty competently done despite the baggage it has. Alice's backstory is actually an interesting read. Krolik and Alice's dynamic is actually well written. But the most interesting part of this flashback is how Alice starts to idolize Krolik and her atheistic beliefs, but in turn brings it back to theism in a sense. It's basically confirmed in the later chapters that she deifies her. Krolik is a god in Alice's mind. Krolik gave Alice the idea to bestow everyone their own Krolik in the form of Raputa, so now everyone can feel the love they both felt. but Krolik's death made her intentions less noble and more fanatical. It's like Raputa taking over the world as revenge for Muchiro killing Krolik. That's good writing shining through this mess of a plot. Then we leave the flashback and get into the actual showdown between the Resistance and Muchiro. So the gang gets there to save Kei from shooting Alice for a reason that's not known yet. They have the struggle with evil Raputa hacking into Heido's mind, and that's kinda cool. Then Sarai finally comes, bringing that plot point back about his foster mother / old hacker lady working on Raputa and being able to control her. But this ends up going nowhere since Alice says "no you" and Raputa shrugs it off and has Heido cap himself. Now we get to the most egregious plot twist in the manga. It's Alice and Raputa planning everything. So, Raputa was given the objective to just expand her influence. In order to do this, she had to convince the whole world to get brain chips installed into them so that Raputa could hack into them more easily. So they had this whole plan, which would culminate in at least someone getting shot in this confrontation. It could have been anyone in the room. What mattered was that it was being live-streamed by Sarai. The stream managed to catch Raputa reviving Haito, and Alice reveals that Raputa is a medical AI that would benefit everyone. And this works. But that's not the end of that. Raputa's plan specifically hinged on manipulating a bunch of people performing their roles almost perfectly. They had to get the Resistance into Muchiro HQ, so they planted bombs on the search group just to piss off the Resistance. If the Resistance didn't go to the Muchiro base, Raputa would revive the search group on a livestream. They killed Joe to coax the Resistance out of hiding and have Kei deliver Raputa into the Resistance HQ. There's a long explanation on how Sarai, Kaori, and Muchiro themselves fit into the scheme, but it's convoluted and I refuse to talk about it. What matters is that Muchiro is seen as an evil organization by the Resistance and as a good one by the public. And to top it all off, there was never a Raputa personality split. So yeah, Kei and the gang lose. So I have several issues with this twist. I'm not against the villains winning here. My main issue is that we have zero indication that this would happen. Fine. Raputa's plan required that nobody in the story know that this would happen, but you'd figure that there would be a small hint for the reader to figure out something is up. There are no blink and you'll miss it moments that tip the reader off that something isn't right. We're just expected to take this twist as is. One other aspect this destroys is any character development that Raputa could have ever had. Since she was a double agent, none of it would have mattered. This just feels like a plot twist for the sake of having one. Or maybe the author just didn't know what to do with all these plot lines and character dynamics and just did a huge cop-out. And now we get to the two ending chapters. Alice taking over Muchiro makes sense. Everyone having their own Raputa makes sense. The cop-out ending with Kaori's arc is dumb. And the fact that Raputa can now bear children is stupid. But this is the part where I feel very conflicted. It's Kei winning over Raputa. It took him 10 years to do that. Anyway, there's a line where he says the old Raputa isn't there anymore. I think this implies that he's disappointed that Alice seemingly has full control over her. But then Raputa switches over to Kei's side and then he says the old Raputa was there all along. Now, the twist that Raputa was never on Alice's side in the first place is dumb and unnecessary and undoes the plot twist that happened a chapter earlier, at least when it comes to Raputa's character. Bringing Krolik back to life for Alice is even dumber. At least we get some development for Raputa as she gains independence from Alice though. But the twist of Kei intentionally getting his revenge is kinda satisfying in a way. He's been holding on to anger and loss for 10 years, and now he finally gets to drag Raputa into her own personal hell. The only way she can escape is by turning her main body into a husk. I'm just a bit disappointed that it had to be built on a sun plot twist. So in summary, Deep Raputa had some absolutely golden ideas, but some of the worst execution of those ideas. They tried to save it near the end with dumb plot twists and retcons, and it still fell flat on its face. This manga never has a dull moment, and hey, it has good art, I'll give it that. But that won't save all the wasted potential here. Nothing against the author, but if anything, I feel that whatever I say could be put into making a better story. And there's absolutely no way that this plot was planned from the very start. This was absolutely axed off and some compromises had to be made. Parts of this manga are a 7 out of 10 on a good day, and on others a 2 out of 10. Read this if you want. This story flew under the radar for most of the manga/anime community, so this might be the most analysis and publicity that this manga will get. And with that, I'm gone. Take care.